I remember the night my father died. Not the man who gave me life, but the man who gave me a home. The man who loved me like I was his own blood. That night, the rain would not stop. It beat against the roof like an angry drum. I lay on the mat beside my mother, listening to the wind cry through the trees. My mother's hand was on my back, warm and steady, but I could tell she was awake too. Then we heard the knock. 3 knocks. Slow. Heavy. Like the person outside was using all their strength just to lift their hand. I turned my head, waiting for Baba to answer. But he did not move. He lay still on his mat, his breathing slow, like he was trying to hold on to something that was slipping away. My mother sat up first. Then I did. Baba. I whispered. His eyes were open, but he was looking past me. Past the room. Past this world. The knock came again. This time, my mother rushed to open the door. I watched her, but my eyes kept moving back to Baba. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. When my mother opened the door, a cold wind rushed in, carrying the smell of wet earth and firewood smoke. Outside stood a man, tall and strong, with a scar down his cheek. I knew him. Everyone in the village knew him. He was the chief's messenger. My mother closed the door. What is it? It is time, the man said. His voice was low. They are coming. My mother looked back at Baba. I looked too. His lips moved, but no sound came out. My mother rushed to his side, lifting his head onto her lap. I had never seen her cry before. Not even when we had nothing to eat. But now, tears ran down her face. Baba, I whispered again, my own voice shaking. Please don't go. He smiled at me. A small, tired smile. Then he coughed, and blood stained his lips. They will take everything, the chief's messenger said. You must leave now. I did not understand. Take what? Who was coming? But my mother knew. She nodded, wiping her tears quickly, trying to be strong. Then Baba took my hand. His grip was weak, but I held on tight. Go, he said. His voice was barely a breath. Take my name with you. I did not want to leave him. But my mother pulled me up. The chief's messenger led us out into the storm. I looked back one last time. Baba was still watching me. But his eyes were not the same. They were empty. We ran into the night. I never knew my real father. My mother told me he died when I was a baby. She never spoke much about it, and I never asked. But I remember the day we arrived in the village. The day we met Baba. We had walked for days. My mother carried me on her back, though she was weak from hunger. People turned us away. No one wanted to take in a woman and a child with nothing to offer. But then we met Baba. He was a farmer. A quiet man with kind eyes. He did not ask where we came from. He did not ask what happened to my father. He only looked at my mother, then at me, then nodded. There is food inside, he said. That was all. And just like that, we had a home. Baba gave me his name. He called me his son. When people in the village whispered, wondering why he had taken in a stranger, he did not answer them. He just worked his land, fed his family, and lived with honor. For years, I thought we were safe. I thought we were happy. But the world is not kind to men like Baba. Men who take in strangers. Men who go against the ways of power. Baba had refused to give his land to the chief. He had refused to bow, to be a servant, to let his crops be taken without payment. And for that, they came for him. That was the night he died. That was the night we ran. I do not know where my mother and I would have gone if not for the chief's messenger. He was Baba's friend, though he could never say it aloud. He hid us in the hills, gave us food, helped us escape before the chief's men could burn our home to the ground. We walked again. This time, my mother held my hand instead of carrying me. I was no longer a baby. I had seen death now. I had seen what happens to good men. But I still carried Baba's name. And one day, I will return to that village. Not as a child. Not as a refugee. But as his son.